Yes?
You're mentioning the parents, and I've done a little bit of reading on the ACEs, and I'm not seeing anything like parent education. Have you seen anything like that?
There's very little on that, and of course there's lots of controversy about what kind of parent education or parent classes are going to be most effective. A lot of what Mike and I have reviewed as far as parenting classes is junk. Sorry. It is. It's coming out of the affirmation movement of the 80s, and you're trying to create something that really isn't there, and parents are being trained in that, and it doesn't really make a difference. I mean, kids in this situation need support, they need the truth, they need to acknowledge the fact that they've experienced a difficult hardship in their life, but that they can emerge from that and go on. And, I'm not healed from my ACEs, but I've learned how to cope with my ACEs and reconcile what happened to me as a child.
So do you think that you guys can work on the next thing after GIST would be parenting? I mean, parenting for ACEs, specifically.
Yeah, we're starting 2 books, actually. Mike has actually already started a book on adoption and foster parenting. And I will tell you, well, I shouldn't tell you, but we're interviewing like 200 parents who've adopted kids and their adult children. And the information that we're getting from both the parents and the kids it's mind-blowing and goes against everything that adoption agencies push as far as expectations for the parents who are adopting the kid. And it's, I think, going to be a radical kind of, oh my gosh, really? Type of thing. I'm going to be quarterbacking a book on ACEs and parenting through ACEs. This is just in outline form right now, but real excited about that. Yes?
Hi, thanks. That was really wonderful information. So I'm a researcher and have some questions about some of your research and whether or not you're going to put up your reference slide.
Oh, sure. Can I put that together and then I'll have the Clarity site put that up?
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Other questions? Yes?
I'm good at identifying stuff, not very good at treating stuff because I work in school, so we're doing a lot of testing. What kind of, if I just give like an approach to taste and I can look up and research better, would you say for a student I know who's been traumatized and I'm not an counselor, but is there a certain kind of methodology that you recommend?
That's not my area of expertise. That'd be a good question for Michael, probably. Okay? It's a great question. Mike is, I tell you, I've never met I've known him for like 12 years. This is a guy, who would think when their daughter comes home after being accused of doing something wrong on a calculus test, as a parent, my first inclination wouldn't be, well, you can't really grow up until you've been accused of something you didn't do. And there's like hundreds of examples like that. Every time he and I talk together, and I just kind of listen to stuff. And it's like, wow, I learned something new today. He's got all these examples after 35 years in counseling. But I think that would be a great question for him. He may have some good insight for you. Okay, other questions? I'm sorry this was kind of technical, but I really wanted you to get a feel of kind of where research is taking this, and I think it's really exciting. Some people are research-oriented, and like me, and some are not, but I hope that was helpful. I think they're going to post everything up on the website as well. But I will definitely get the list of resources for you. Yes?
Although, we work with kids and, we need to take care of what's coming at us. But one of the things that's really important is that ACE research really looked at those health concerns. And so diabetes and heart disease are the biggest numbers. We spend so much money on that. So we're really interested in looking at making a change as we move forward over the next decade or two. It's actually having prevention. It's actually looking at lawmakers and people who are making decisions about health care and finding out what they know about ACEs and what they plan to do to help our society not spend billions and billions of dollars on health care and diabetes and COPD when we can probably prevent more than 50% of that if we took care of them as children.
I think if we were really serious about prevention like that, we would knock the healthcare budget in half really quick, because the exponential costs of people who've experienced high ACE scores is just incredible. Whether it's heart disease, lung disease, autoimmune disease is much higher in patients who have high ACE scores. So the epidemic of celiac disease and all of those things, the epidemic of allergies, you know. Why are more kids allergic to everything today than they ever were? Well, their immune system is working overtime and being damaged by their stress system. So yes.
So it seems too there's, part of the ACE study was the resiliencies and how each of the high scores cope. And I'd love to know the research on how, if you do the particular things that suggest in terms of building resiliency, how that impacts health as a long-term outcome.
Yeah.
But I think it might be really high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think unfortunately a lot of times the damage is done, but as far as coping on a day-to-day basis and being effective, functional people, I think the key is early social emotional buffering.
And I'm thinking some of those resiliency factors can give that social emotional buffering. You know, like kids who are very artistic or musically inclined to get involved in that and have outlets and get praise and rewards and intrinsic value out of that.
But you know, we spend so little time in our country understanding each kid and what their bents are, their talents, their natural abilities. We just throw 30 kids in a classroom and expect them all to learn the same way. And yeah, don't get me started on where I'd preach to the choir on that one, I'm sure. It's just so frustrating. Yes, ma'am.
So an adult has like a high ACE score. I know that you said, I mean, obviously the damage has been done, they've experienced trauma, but what would you say would be something that would possibly help them to cope? Like if they develop like, insomnia or high anxiety levels or depression or, ulcers, things like that.
That's a great question. I think adults who've had high ACE scores really need to read about what that really means for them and ways to help remediate that. One of the books that I read about 3 years ago was The Body Keeps the Score. Has anybody read that book? Wow. Especially towards the end, it talks about things like mindfulness training and things that will really help start to regulate your stress hormone system that's all discombobulated. So I think that's a great book, one of the best ones out there on what adults can do who have high ACE scores. Okay? I can't remember the author, but I'm pretty sure that's the name of it, The Body Keeps the Score. Is that the name? It's really a good book. It was so good that I got it on audiobook, and I've listened to it a couple of times now. Other questions?
I have another question. Right here.
Just a second.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I apologize if this question was asked in another way. Do you know if there's any resilience training and development for children? I know there are curriculums in place for teaching how to cope with anxiety or depression. So do you know if there are any resilience trainings currently in effect or in the works?
I haven't seen any. Has anybody else seen any specific childhood resilience training? It's a great question, and of course addresses the issue it needs to be learned. It's just not going to osmose into a kid's brain. It needs to be taught. The question is, who's going to teach them? So, no, that's a great question. Maybe that's maybe that'll be part of the ACE book. Maybe parenting for resilience or something like that. Okay?
There's the 40, and now it's 41 developmental assets that we do teach in the school district about what things are in place for kids in their external life, but also intrinsically that help them become resilient. And there's been some research on it. I forget what was the organization.
And what is that called again?
The Search Institute. The Search Institute,
Okay.
40 developmental assets, but I think they've added one more.
Okay. That's the group that did community asset research also back in the 90s.
Yes.
What they've also added to that is now they're working on developmental relationships and how to foster developmental relationships with young kids for resiliency.
That's great. That's awesome. Yes, did you have another question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, bringing this up in your office as you see a child, I was just wondering if you had techniques that you deal with the resistance of the parent or the caregiver who's there with you. Do you talk to them directly as honestly as
I do. You know, in teenagers, when we see them with the parent first, then we excuse the parent, and then, you know, do the heads exam and all that other kind of thing that has to do with high-risk behaviors. A lot of kids don't want their high-risk behaviors divulged to the parents, but I'm lucky I got a lot of white hair, and I can tell them in no uncertain terms the importance of having some adult in your life that really knows what you're going through. And so I do that a lot. I think a lot of it's built on relationship. You know, maybe the first time it's like it's not going to work that way, but 3 times into it, then they really trust you and can go with that. I've really been kind of dumbfounded when I give parents ACE surveys. I've had one situation where the mom said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I could just tell that she probably would have scored very high, and these were big traumas to her. But so many parents are like, wow, I'm so glad you're asking us about that and doing research about how that might affect our kids. And you know, ultimately the goal is to try to figure out how to help parents heal and be better parents so that their kids don't repeat the generational issues that their parents were part of, probably. Yes?
What about the 3 generations of, everybody has high ACE, I don't imagine, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I work in juvenile probation, we have kids 10 years old. Their 14-year-old brother just left. And the 18-year-old mom and dad have been in jail.
Yep.
So, the beat goes on.
The beat goes on. It really is true. This is a real generational thing. That's why I think intergenerational interventions are really what needed. What you do is still going to be needed no matter what. I mean, it's not like you're going to get displaced by intergenerational interventions. There's going to always, and you guys are so over or underpopulated right now. There's just not enough child psychologists out in the world. There's not enough child psychiatrists. It's a really, really underserved career right now. Other issues? I want to just tell a little story about my daughter. She went off to college and had a really excellent high school career. Great friends, was in theater, soccer, choir, did great in school, and off to college to major in piano performance, and she was all excited, and so were my wife and I. Unfortunately made some really bad friends her first semester, which brought her down into the sewer in about 3 months. And she ended up doing things and experiencing trauma that her daddy never would have ever imagined. But as she recovered from that and emerged from that, we worked very hard with her on resilience and boundaries and all of those things that kids need. We thought she had those things, but again, it was her peer group that she chose at college that was the biggest mistake. And now at the age of 26, she's halfway through her master's program in addiction counseling. Fully recovered, now 6 years clean from her multiple addictions that she acquired in the first 3 months of college. We couldn't be more proud of her. And so I think it's really important if you have a story of restitution, a story of redemption, a story of, you know, I came out of that and this is the direction that I'm going now. It's really important for you to share those stories with your clients and your families. Because when people know that emergence is possible, that gives them hope, and then you can come alongside them and do what you do so well. So I encourage you to share stories of people you know or yourself in that prospect. I've shared the story of my mom's suicide so many times, I've forgotten how many times I've shared it with kids in my practice who are suicidal, and helping them understand what that does to the people you leave behind and the trauma that that does. And I don't know if it's made a difference in some of those kids, but I think it's important to share your own personal journey as well.